that are in the council chambers here this evening. Don't have a very large crowd, but we've got enough to do business here, so we're going to carry on with that. Of course, we always welcome the press if they happen to be here, and those that are joining us either live or through tape recording on one of our social media channels or website. Before we get into our business this evening, I'm going to recognize our city manager for an announcement and a concern that we have here in our city.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate you letting me go first this evening. I want to update the City Council and the public on our situation with our water system and what has occurred and what is currently transpiring. As you know, we've had some very cold temperatures over the last week or so, and that has led to the fact that we've had water line breaks. Whenever it gets really cold, the ground shifts as it freezes, and breaks can occur in our system. That did occur, and it started last week. We remember that Liberty Drive was shut down for a couple of days while we were repairing that one. Well, what happens when we have those breaks, especially if they last for a period of time, is that the water plant itself can't keep up with demand. Generally, the way our water plant works is it can produce 2.5 million gallons a day. We can store 3.5 million gallons. But if there are breaks, especially if they occur at night and they take time to repair, then that's going to push down the ability to recharge our tanks. So when we start the next day, we start in a deficit position. So even though we're producing water, we're also using water by our customers. On Saturday, this became a little bit more of an issue, that finally on Sunday we felt that it was important enough and a concern enough that we issue the conservation notice that we did put out. And typically we think of conservation notices when there's a drought situation. This was a situation where there just wasn't enough water in our system to guarantee that we were going to have water unless people pulled back from their water usage. The good news is that the community did listen to us and did pull back their consumption, which helped keep us going. But it continued to not improve because we had additional breaks that occurred. And then actually early this morning, we had a house fire that utilized water. And of course, there were potentially breaks in our system that we weren't aware of. So this morning, after meeting with staff, we felt like it was important to take this a step further. We activated our Emergency Operations Center, and we pulled in crews from Public Works, the maintenance and construction, firefighter crews, police, and other administrative staff to try to hunt down these water leaks and try to identify where they were. And we sent people out to do that. And this afternoon, we identified at least 15 potential breaks. We were looking for frozen water, for running water, or if it was in a creek, we were looking at places where there was evidence of a break, where there's ice in the trees and things like that, where the water came out, or turbulent water that had been stirred up by the mixing of that water, or additional water than what normally should be flowing in the creek. So we did that this afternoon. We also, of course, have been working to produce as much water as we can. And producing water is like a little bit like being a farmer. You're never satisfied with the temperature and the air and the weather. So at this time of year, the production is slowed a little bit because of the cold water and what it takes to get it filtered and get the chemical reactions that we're looking for. So we were producing water at about 2.5 million gallons a day, but as I mentioned, we use about 2.5 million gallons a day. So we weren't gaining back. And if we had had another major break or a major fire, we were definitely going to impact the system. In addition to that, we normally would look to Davidson Water as our backup utility provider for water. Unfortunately, they were having some issues within their own system that they were addressing, And it took till this afternoon for them to work those out and be able to then serve us. So late this afternoon, we did switch over the high-pressure zone area, which is in the eastern part of our city, to the Davidson water system, which relieves pressure figuratively and literally from the rest of our system, so that we should be in a position where we're starting to recharge our tanks and get back to a normal operations. All of that is predicated on the fact that we don't have any more significant breaks and we don't have any major events. Unfortunately, so the cold weather right now is helping us because it's frozen the ground and gotten everything hard. Unfortunately, when the ground starts to warm up later this week, it's very possible that we will go through this again with breaks that would occur because the ground is now going to shift again as it defrosts. But we should be in, if everything goes well the next couple of days, we should be in a good position and be able to recover from any breaks that occur this weekend or in the future. So I know that we've been asking our community to conserve. I asked them to do it for one more night just to make sure that we are in good shape tomorrow. And my expectation is after we have a morning meeting that we'll be able to lift those conservation standards so that we can move on and get back to a normal operations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now down to item 2, additions and or deletions. Mr. City Manager once again.
I have no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, you may record your vote. Okay, we have 5-0 with 2 members absent and 2 members, Neil Grimes and Doug Hunt, there on excused absence from the meeting this evening. So it's 5-0, it's unanimous. We had no one to sign up for public forum, so we'll move right along into our consent agenda. And tonight, our Deputy City Manager, Eddie Bowling, will take care of that for us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time. The first item on the consent agenda is item A, consideration of minutes of the briefing minute from December the 9th, 2024. Second item is item B, consideration of minutes from the council meeting on December 16th, 2024. Item C is consideration of annual audit contract with Martin Starnes and Associates in the amount of $66,150. According to the North Carolina Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, which is North Carolina General Statute 15934, all local governments are required to have an annual audit performed by a licensed independent auditor. This law is designed to ensure that public funds are used appropriately and in accordance with law regulations. Item D is consideration of award bid of a phase construction in the amount of $200,100 for a roofing contract at Fire Station 22. This is a retroactive approval of contract award for the phase construction for the replacement of Fire Station 22's roof to ensure compliance with our purchasing policy. That's your consent agenda for this evening.
Thank you very much. What's the pleasure of council?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion to second. Any discussion? Okay, you may record your vote. 5-0, unanimous, that we approve the consent agenda. We're now down to our regular agenda. Item A is consideration of budget amendment to transfer funds from PAL bill fund balance to general fund for street paving, insurance proceeds, NCAS youth sports grant. Mr. City Manager.
Well, Mayor, you've already done my business for me, so I appreciate that. Yes, this is a budget amendment of $236,341 for the PAL bill, for street paving, as mentioned. $236,341 comes from our paving reserve that has been set aside through our property tax. An additional $50,000 has been set aside through the PAL bill funds for street paving. We also have refunds and insurance proceeds of $2,511, and then an additional $7,962 for insurance proceeds. And then our last item is the state grants award of $20,000, which is on your agenda later this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. What's the pleasure of council with regard to item A?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now, is there any discussion? Okay, you may record your vote. And it's 5-0, unanimously approved. Item B is consideration of award of bid to Zulu Marine in the amount of $64,064 as part of STRAP grant for debris removal. Recognize our Emergency Management Director, Sam Oshinsky.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
So, the consideration for award to Zulu Marine, this is for debris removal from some pieces of the North Hamby Creek and then Jimmy's Creek. And that is for that $64,064.
Okay. Thank you. You've heard this. What's the pleasure of council?
Mayor, I have a question.
Okay.
What criteria did we use? I know we gave a refresher, but what do we use to identify the areas that we are going to use for this grant? How do we figure that out?
As far as the locations?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was just known hazard areas that we've had some flooding in the past that started to affect either residents or commercial properties.
Okay. And so if we wanted to, like, for example, in the plan, I see that we're addressing Plan B and a portion of Plan B.
Yes.
But for a budget retreat, I know, for example, we're talking about some possible use for that area and what it's going to cost us to do it. So I was just thinking about some of the funds that we are currently using from this grant. Would it not be helpful for us to be able to start thinking about using or maybe allocating a little bit more of the funds to that specific area, if that is a possible area that we're thinking about redeveloping? I was just curious about what criteria was this. Did we identify those other two areas because they were just higher up on the chart, or how did that?
Yeah, exactly. And then this is also a recurring grant as well, so there would be possible opportunities next year even to apply for more debris removal and stream bank stabilization.
Okay. All right. What's the pleasure of council then? Go ahead.
Did we answer your question? Did we answer your question specifically, or do you still have a further question?
Yeah, the question was answered. I just would definitely hope, maybe thinking in the foresight of the council members up here, if we're thinking about possibly doing something with Plan B, and we're knowing it's already going to cost a lot with the floodplains, allowing us to be able to use funds, maybe for this STRAP grant for this year would be a good example of us being able to be proactive to thinking about that use of that property.
Is the grant, is the STRAP grant, this one specific for this location, or was it money?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
it is.
gotcha. So it'd have to be a next year thing.
Unless we didn't approve it and then they came back with us with a plan to be able to address more of the area of Plan B, which could happen, right?
I'm
If
assuming
we-
if we don't approve it, we don't get the grant money at all.
That is correct.
Okay.
This year, we would not be eligible if you did not approve it.
That's all my questions.
Okay. All right. Then what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consideration of award of bid to Zulu Marina in the amount of $64,000 as a part of the STRAP grant for debris removal.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion or questions? Okay, you may record your votes. We have 5-0 in the affirmative, so that has been approved. Now down to item C, consideration of award of bid to HES LLC, Resource Environmental Solutions LLC, in the amount of $245,390 as part of STRAP grant for stream bank stabilization. Mr. Sam Oshinsky, once again.
Thank you, sir. So following the same, this is a STRAP grant. This one is specifically for stream bank stabilization. So that is in some pieces also the North Hamby, but a lot of it over in the Jimmy's Creek area. This is hiring an engineering consultant to come in, make recommendations, just within that price range of the grant itself.
Okay, any questions on that from anybody?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question, but kind of in regards to what Councilman Johnson was alluding to. You know, Plant B is a site that potentially is a recreation site, and that's great. And I hope someday we can get to that point. There was a 14-house subdivision and a 137-house subdivision that was planned for the area where this Jimmy Creek area that we're talking about is. The folks who live at the bottom of all that came to us back long before the 137-house subdivision and were extremely upset about what it was doing to their property that they already live on. And so, in my mind, the Jimmy Creek is more of a pressing need because it's affecting people's property. You know, as we're sitting here, I mean, some of their banks have been washing away, whereas the Plant B site is really more for recreation that maybe can happen someday. So I'm just saying that I'm glad that we're able to do something to help those folks down there because they had a legitimate concern.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the award bid to HGS LLC Resource Environmental Solutions in the amount of $245,390 if I get my contacts to work as part of the STRAP grant for stream bank stabilization.
Is there a second? Any more discussion or questions? Okay, you may record your votes.
Thank you.
And that's approved 5-0 unanimously. Okay, we're now down to item D, consideration of award of bid to Thompson Arthur Paving and Construction in the amount of $1,075,465.90 for spring 2025 street paving. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Each year, we try to pave as much street as we can, which usually turns out to be about 5 miles a year, based on the pricing of asphalt and labor. What we are proposing is this contract, which would include portions of Church Street from Main to West Guilford, Winston Street from Highland to West Main, Moore Street from Main to Evans, Doak from Salem to, I'm sorry, someone abbreviated this, EOM. I'm not sure what the abbreviation is.
What did you say, stadium?
Salem to
Salem.
EOM. East,
Main.
yes, that would make sense. Broad Street from Julian to Sullivan, East Sunrise from Randolph to Julian, West Sunrise from Randolph to Rondalia, Taylor Street from West Main to Sunrise, J.W. Thomas Way from Salem to Trade Street from West Main to West Guilford, Elliott from Davidson to West Guilford, Spring from Jones to Finch, Spring from Laughlin to Carmalt, Longview from Sunrise to Leach, Hasty Hill from Will Johnson to Hasty School Road, in addition to Big Buck, Buck Forest, and Stony Point. All of these total about 5 miles when in linear feet or miles. This is based on the survey that we did a couple of years ago. We're progressing through the worst of the streets that were identified, and these are the next groupings of streets. And it's not every portion of a street. Sometimes if one part of a street has been paved in the past, so that gets moved, and we don't try to repave that area.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of council with regard to this item?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the award of bid to the Thompson Arthur Paving and Construction in the amount of $1,075,465.90 for the spring 2025 street paving.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion or questions?
I want to encourage my other folks on council to drive up and down Taylor Street before our retreat Or if you're feeling up to it, it's not too cold, walk up and down Taylor Street on the sidewalks. Because we're going to repave it. It's going to be beautiful. The sidewalks are in really bad shape. So it'd be nice to think about knocking both of those out at once.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, you may record your vote. And I have 5 in the affirmative, so that has been unanimously approved. Our next item, item E, is consideration of acceptance of North Carolina Amateur Sports, Youth Sports Grant. I'm going to recognize Dominique Pickett with our Recreation Department to present this item.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Like I said, this NCAS grant is worth $20,000. With this grant, like I said, we're going to purchase 2 new scoreboards for our recreation center, gymnasium, as well as 2 large soccer goals, as well as a volleyball net system. Those 3 items are to increase not only our youth athletics, but also particularly our female participants as well.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Dominique while he's up here?
Just kudos for you and Molly and your department and what you've done in the recognition that girls' sports is important.
Thank you.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
I'll move that we accept the North Carolina Amateur Sports Youth Sports Grant.
Is there a second? Okay, I have a motion second. Any discussion? Okay, you may record your votes. I have a vote of 5-0. That has been unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Down to item F, consideration of resolution of tentative award of bid to Gilbert Engineering Company in the amount of $6,775,345 for Range Road Pump Station upgrade. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I hate that Councilman Hunt is not here this evening to vote on this because this has been one of his projects. It's close to his heart. But this is very good news for the city. This is a combination of loan and grant through the state revolving loan fund that was increased because of the bids that came in were much higher than what we had originally expected, and so we had to go back to the LGC to get reapproval, and they did reapprove a larger number, a larger dollar amount, which I appreciate Morgan Huffman, our Public Utilities Director, and Thomas Avant, the Finance Director, for working that out very quickly and being able to get this brought back to you. This will allow us to upgrade and expand the pump station that's next to the golf course area, which serves the whole side of the north end of town, which has been essentially under a moratorium of development because we can't accept any more sewer into the system. So this is the first of a couple of pump systems that we will need to improve over the next couple of years. But getting this one done is a pretty important one to the whole process, because this includes the transport of the waste under the 29 corridor, which is obviously an expensive proposition and also a very complicated proposition. So this is a really good news for the city of Thomasville. So we do recommend approval and giving the bid to Gilbert Engineering.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for City Manager? Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the tentative award of bid, or the award of bid to Gilbert Engineering Company in the amount of $6,775,345 for the Range Road Pump Station upgrade.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to second. Any discussion? Okay, you may record your bid. And that has been approved 5-0, so it's unanimously approved. Now down to our committee reports and assignments, and we'll start this evening with Mayor Pro Tem Hunter Thrift.
Thank you, Mayor. I have submitted a copy of my activities to the clerk, and considering the weather when we entered tonight and the temperatures, I'm gonna let that stand as my report.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Peyton Williams.
I have not submitted a copy of my activities, and considering Hunter's short chat, I'm gonna talk for a long time. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I do want to say it's too cold for people and it's too cold for pets to be outside. People, if you need a place to go overnight, you can go to Unity United Methodist Church for men or Father's Storehouse for women and children. I know they also need volunteers. So if you have a place to go, but you want to help out, I know that both of those places would gladly accept some help. Please bring your pets inside. It's too cold. I had something else to say that was important, but I forgot what it is. So you all get off easy tonight, and I'll get you my report, and I'll let that stand.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Jacquez Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I have submitted a copy of my report to our city clerk, and we're a day after Martin Luther King Day, and so it was really amazing to be able to celebrate here in our community with the Martin Luther King Social Action Committee, with Bishop Jackson and the Martin Luther King oratorical contest that they had over the weekend, where they gave $25,000 to local juniors and seniors here in our community. And it's always really exciting to be able to see those students put their heart and soul into that. So I'll let that stand as my report for this evening, and stay warm.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Scott Stires.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk does have a copy of my activities, and I'll only add by saying, in the absence of my good friend, Mr. Neil Grimes, who's a member of the ABC board, as the council liaison to that board, I went to the meeting this morning and continued to be tremendously impressed as to how professionally that operation is run, and how much more money it contributes to the city of Thomasville budget than it did when I first got on council 17 years ago. It certainly makes our job a lot easier when we have to set the tax rate to get the kind of income from that store that we do. So just wanted to shout out that appreciation, and that'll stand as my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Lisa Shell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I have submitted a copy of my report, my activities, to Ms. Martin as of about 5 minutes ago. I also wanted to say that it's very cold. Everybody, please stay inside. Take your pets inside. And again, I'm going to come off of what Peyton said. If the men need somewhere to go, please go to the church on Unity Street, yes, on National Highway, or to the women and children. Please go see Miss Brenda at the Father's Storehouse. And I'm excited about this Rains Road upgrade. It's been a long time coming, and I'm excited. And I'm going to let that stand as my report.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have much to report on myself. I'm still housebound a lot with my wife, and I told a little bit about that last month. But do have a few things that I'd like to say. Number one, going back to what Michael told us early on about the water issue, we have crews out working right now. They'll be out all night, and it's going to be down in the teens tonight, and they'll be in water, mud, and we need to keep them in our thoughts and our prayers. They're doing a good job, and they're trying to do the best they can to get the water back in good shape for us. So let's keep them in mind, and I just like to just give them a special thank you for what they're doing. Now, having said that, we had firefighters out last night in teen weather fighting a house fire. We have police officers out every night, whether it's 100 degrees or 10 degrees, doing their jobs. So we need to keep them in mind too. And so we just appreciate all of our employees, the ones that come to work every day, do a great job for us. And I just needed to say that in light of what we're going through now, but every day of the year, they need our support and our prayers for them. So that'll be my report for tonight. So now I'll go now to our city manager, Michael Brandt.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that show of support to our employees. We really can't do the work without them, and so you kind of stole a piece of my thunder, but I'll still say it. I do appreciate the fact that they came together this afternoon. It took almost no action. Within an hour, we had called for them to be mustered and headed out. They understood what their job was, and they did a great job canvassing the area, looking for those water leaks. It's something that we've been through before. It's not the first time we've had this type of situation, but it is something that is obviously of critical importance to make sure that we have the water and the services to our community. And that's what we do every day. Sometimes we get a little bit of noise and a little bit of media attention when we do it, but regardless, we do this every day. So thank you for recognizing the employees that do the work. And I'm going to let that stand.
Real quick, Michael, you mentioned it earlier. What should people look for? Like, what will a water break look like when it's this cold?
A water break will either be running water, because the water obviously in the pipes is a little bit above freezing at least. So an area of running water, maybe water under ice that's running in the street. It could be ponding water that has frozen in a street that is not something that would naturally have occurred from the rain that we had this weekend. Or if it's in a creek, it could very well be stirring up that creek, and so the creek water is muddy and not running clear. So that would be all indications that there is a water leak nearby.
And if someone thinks they see a water leak, what should they do?
They should call the water. Let me actually get you the phone number, because I'm glad you asked.
That was the other important thing I was going to say.
Let me.
While
So-
he's looking for that, I'll bring another one to, just so you can have that in your mind. You know, we have many ditches in our city. If you should see some running water in a ditch, because a lot of times it'll be in the street, but it'll exit into a ditch, and there shouldn't be running water in a ditch. Now, it's an unusual sight of water, more or less, where it's not natural or normal. Yeah, Michael, so excuse my interruption.
No, perfect. The phone number to the water plant is 336-475-4247. And if you call that number, and if you don't get anyone, you can leave a message and just give them the location of where you see the water or the potential for a water leak, and we can send a crew out to take a look at it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Our city attorney, Mr. Whitman.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. I think everything I needed to share this evening has already been shared, and in light of the weather, I will keep mine nice and short as well.
Thank you very much. Deputy City Manager Eddie Bowley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make one comment and make it brief. I want to recognize our city manager for leading the city through this challenge. And then you might not understand, or folks might not understand, the burden that comes along with making sure 11,000 homes, 27,000 people have water when they turn the spigot on. And he did a great job making sure that everything was covered. And this has been going on through the weekend. And so many folks didn't realize we had an issue. But things were going on behind the scenes to carry this issue through. So I want to thank him and recognize him.
You know, and in light of that, I would also like to make a comment about that. We met today at noon at the OC. Michael alluded to that earlier. Had a lot of our staff down there, our different departments came together, and Michael went over the issues that we're facing. And then there had to be a plan formed. And I'm sitting there listening to this, and this one over here speaks up. He says, "Well, we have the 4 zones are in the police department now, and the 4 wards like we used to have. Some of the crews are split up in those. So why can't each crew take their ward and go check it? Well, that's good. And then another one's going to check the new housing projects." And then others were going to be going to manufacturing plants like our police department, our fire department. Then our police department, they're out there everywhere. So, you know, they're on notice now to be looking for water coming out of the street in places. And this just going around the room and comments being made and organization that was done. I mean, it was really good to see how everybody sought to work together to address this problem. And it's working because we're getting a little better. We're not where we need to be, and we hope, you know, we're going in the right direction for sure. But things were really organized, as Eddie said, and thank you, Michael, for your leadership in that, and you too, Eddie, and in yours. And so we appreciate all of you. So that's all I have to say at this time. Are there any additional things to come before council this evening? If not, we're down to adjournment. Do I have a
Your
motion?
checks are in the mail, so.
Okay. Appreciate that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're adjourned.
And we just signed the ethics thing too, Michael.